Hello, welcome. The title of today's talk is Hegemony of Powers, the Sociological Structure of Elite Global Control. And it is information, a kind of vision that I've rapidly come about by reading the Carol Quigley texts on elite global control, on watching Jay Dyer. I've quickly come to understand the sociological structure of how power emanates from the top on down, from the banksters to the politicians and everything in between. The thesis, no further delay, is that in the history and in the present structure or food chain or pyramid of global elite power is as follows sociologically. The banksters, the banking families, banking houses, and banksters, leading bankers like the J.P. Morgan legacy or the Rothschilds legacy or the Rockefeller legacy at the top. Below them are think tanks. It goes like a pyramid. Banksters are at the top. Banksters. Below them, think tanks with prestigious professors as lead of the think tanks. And then below that is media and journalism. And then finally at the bottom is politicians and corporations. So it goes bankers, think tanks, media, and politicians and corporations in a pyramid. That's the structure of power in a pyramid, so simply put. It stands it stands that to know the sociology of this power structure is to gain clairvoyance in the way that the world history unfolds. The way the world history unfolds in the past, at least in the past 100 years or more, is in this direction. Point one, and I'll just give an example of history that I don't know too much about right now, but I'm getting to learn it through the Carol Quigley text, The Anglo-American Establishment, is he talks about the Milner Group, and the Milner Group grew, just as an example, the Milner Group it's founded by Cecil Rhodes in, I think, 1891. And then Lord Milner took over 1902 to 1925. The Milner Group, Lord Milner's power grew out of an intellectual circle, which centered around him and Arnold Toynbee, or I think it's Arnold or Albert Toynbee, the great British historian. And Milner were the intellectual power horse. And then there's a political power of this family named Cecil, Lord Salisbury, out of the Cecil rings of political power. It's a family of political power, a dynasty. And then, of course, the economic or financial backing of the Cecil Rhodes circles. So it grew out of the intellectual circle, political circle, and economic financial circle. Those three interwoven rings, like a Gordian knot, three rings bound together. One ring to rule them all. The intellectual of Toynbee Milner, and Milner took over the political power of the Cecil rings, who are not Cecil rings are not related to Cecil Rhodes, but they're not the same family. But then Cecil Rhodes is the economic or financial backing. That's just an example of history. Point two, getting to the order of business here. The order of business is for the bankers to buy, purchase, co-opt intellectuals herded into think tanks. Example, Aldous Huxley, Julian Huxley, Zbigniew Brzezinski, Klaus Schwab. These are all high-ranking coming from high-ranking professorships, and you'll notice that they have net worths. Like Klaus Schwab is a professor that's worth $100 million through his activities with the World Economic Forum. But they come from high-ranking professorships into think tanks like Tavistock, Rand Corporation, and the World Economic Forum. So you'll notice that with the best money in the world, with the most concern with power, the bankers control everything, as I covered in my last video. Through the mechanism of money, they control the whole economy, the whole society, the whole polity. But this is how they buy power. And it is a business of relationships and sociological factors, of associations, social associations, friendships, meetings with minds, meetings between people. And the first thing that they buy is they look at professors that are the best outstanding professors that can be apologists or can be thinkers for their cause. The banksters glean this out. They look at the herd, they pull out the professor, and then they put them into a think tank like Rand Corporation or Tavistock or World Economic Forum, which are essentially just thinking groups or think tanks, right? Stanford Research, Harvard Research, Columbia, professor at Columbia University is Zbigniew Brzezinski. They buy intellectuals that can act as mouthpieces, speakers, and give apologetic and give rump speeches for their cause. The banksters do this. And that's why below the banksters is the managers of the think tanks and the professorships that they select. Point three, from the think tanks, it trickles down into the media. Ideas are filtered to the masses, which are through purchased media corporations So the media actually does rely on the think tanks because the think tanks give them the lines to actually write the script for them. They write the script for the media, and then the media are how it's broadcast out to the masses, filtered down to the masses through the media. So the think tanks come. Let's give an example. Klaus Schwab might say, "Well, the World Economic Forum is just and the banks are central banks are just after global prosperity and order and disease control." And all these good goods that society and the world and global government so that the world can be in peace. They'll say this is a script that they come up with, this is the apologetic or the speech that they come up with, and then this is filtered down through the media, and then talking pieces on the media give a round policy prescription on it. And then on the back end of this, on the end of the media, point four, and finally, is that from here, the politicians are given policy prescriptions and cornered by lobbyists. So the bankers very carefully they own the think tanks, they select and groom and co-opt the professors, head professors from head research divisions in universities like the Rhodes Scholarship at Oxford was designed for that, was it not, to get people into this circle of friends or round table, outer group of the round table, as the Milner group found. But really the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, they're given they come up think they buy the professor, like I said, buy the professorship, but put them in think tanks. From the think tanks, it filters down into the media filters broadcasts it out, filters it to the masses and the public, creating false consciousness. And from here, the politician, and you'll notice people are primed by TV all the time. Even I'm primed by what I watch, right? So it's not a far stretch to say that the population is primed by what they watch. And then finally, from this, the politicians actually take their cue, as Jordan Peterson said with Justin Trudeau in Canada. Justin Trudeau takes his policy prescriptions from the CBC, the CBC Central Broadcasting Company, the Central Government-run Broadcasting Corporation in Canada, takes his orders, or Trudeau takes his orders from the Central Broadcasting Corporation of Media. Same way in the U.S., Biden might take his cues from MSNBC, or the people around him might take their cues from the media, but it goes from bankster to think tank professors to media, and then finally the politicians and corporate leaders are at the bottom of this leadership. But of course, the bankers own every link in the chain. They own the think tanks, the foundations, the trust put to the think tanks. They pay for the professors' welfare and their livelihood and their wealth. They build up wealth for the professors they select. Then they own the media corporations. They own the means of broadcasting. And then finally, they own lobbyists that if the politicians aren't thoroughly cornered by the media and the think tanks, then they're at least cornered by the lobbyists in Congress and in the Senate and in the presidency. So with this is a sociological structure of elite global control, the hegemony powers, a very quick wrapped summary of how it stands, and you'll see this is how the world power enchilada plays out on the world history in the present moment and in the past. So take care till next time. God bless. Amen. Hope all is well on the other side of the internet. Goodbye. Bye-bye.